no need for introductions at all because we already know who Martin is. And if you don't, then clearly you haven't seen part one, the long version, you know. But yeah, so you know, like in regards to the styles that people have or want to have while you know they come for you for cuts, what do you think has been, or rather, how do you see the evolution in the styles that people have wanted since back when you started compared to now? And what do you think are the challenges in regards to that, or do you think it's
right.
you know?
These days, it's a little bit more blurred in terms of, I'm going to say stylistically and like / culturally, right? Where the origin of this style of barbering, or the let's say the prominent style of barbering that everyone sees online, and the fresh lineups, like we were talking, the enhancements and whatever, all that originates in black hairstyling, right? So back when I first kind of came in the game, the cultural lines were still very, they were much more prominent back then. You know, this is a black barbershop. You know what I mean? There might be Asian people or Indian people or white people or something that come through, but ultimately they're getting so-called black hairstyles. You know what I mean? It's the sharp lines, it's the bald fade, it's the attentiveness to detail, you know, that comes culturally from black barbering, which is that, like I said, very, you know, airbrush looking fade, like very seamless, you know, very technical in that way, you know. What I find over years is that, again, I'm gonna say so-called black barbershops have started integrating more into like, you know, scissors and comb and like comb over styles. When you started seeing, you know, soccer players and stuff wearing like, you know, rocking bald fades with the comb over on the top with the line carved in the side. Whereas now you're kind of fusing, like, again, that carving of the line and that super sharp kind of bald fade is black origin in terms of cultural style or technical style. But the whole idea of, like, you know, again, if you're dealing with straighter hair or whatever, with the scissors and the comb and that kind of thing, it's more, like I said, I would say that that's what I see the biggest difference of is people within the realm of like I said, so-called black barbershops doing more outside of that culture than was before.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you think they had to learn from the ground up, or?
Well, I think the interesting part is that if you go to, like, let's say the stereotypical old Italian barber or the old Greek barber, they're not doing black hair.
Right.
If somebody with an afro comes in and needs the afro trimmed or tapered or something, they're not doing it. They're not comfortable doing it, a lot of them. I don't want to speak for everybody, but on the whole, like, you know, either you cut so-called black hair or you don't. There is no in between. Not everybody across the board, but majority integrated over time to do styles a little bit more outside of the traditional so-called black style, origin barbershop style.
Right.
You know?
And I'm actually wondering, in regards to the black style, do you feel as though that specifically has also changed within how the youth see how they want to cut their hair compared to like people who are in previous generations of the black culture?
Not entirely, bro, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, there's certain styles that have been kind of reserved for like older guys, for example, you know, but not really. There's variations of the same things, you know what I mean? Everyone now wants to like taper, you know, it's like the taper. But the taper was always a thing. It wasn't that it wasn't not a thing.
Right.
You know, maybe back in the day when everyone wanted a high bald fade, and now they want, you know, a high bald taper. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not, again, all the stuff is, it all gets kind of recycled, you know? Like, I missed the generation from the early 90s where it was like, the old school high top, you know, fades. They used to call it Gumby. You sit on a slant, like it's a high top, but it sits on a slant like this. It's a very 80s, late 80s, early 90s style that kind of died out for a bit in the 2000s and whatever. But I'm gonna say probably maybe about, you know, 15 years, you know, 10 to 15 years ago, started coming back again. You know what I mean? So everything kind of comes back around, you know.
Right. So as a business owner as well, I believe, well, number one, do you like co-own the business or you're just like the person, you know?
Well, I mean, like we were saying before, Ray,
Right.
Raekwon, his partner and stuff,
Okay,
is the
okay.
manager,
Yeah.
and me are pretty much like the
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, yeah. So it's
trifecta,
not
you know?
really okay, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, in regards to that, so I'm just wondering what kind of challenges that perhaps you've faced as a business owner that are specific to the barbershop industry that you wouldn't really find in other businesses as a business owner. Not necessarily challenges as just someone who's just cutting hair, but I mean
Right.
as someone owning a business.
One of the bigger challenges, you know, I think with any industry really is the people, man. It's dealing with people. You know what I mean? It's nobody did it as an island. You know, it's like you have to work with others. The thing with barbering is that it's such a personal and personable profession, you know, that each barber is like their own business, you know, they're like their own brand. So it gets a little tricky sometimes, you know, because with that, you know, comes, like I can teach you how to cut hair, bro, that's not a problem.
Right.
Anybody that's willing to learn, I can teach them how to cut hair. But I can't teach you how to necessarily be patient with people. I can't teach you how to be a good listener, per se, you know what I'm saying? Unless I'm gonna run you through like a boot camp and like break you down and build you back up. But like ultimately, you're kind of instilled with the values that whoever gave you whatever values that you have, you know what I mean? I think one of the worst drugs out here is the ego, man. You know what I mean? So when you're dealing with people, you know, there's different ego levels. That can be a challenging part, you know, is dealing with different people and yeah.
You feel like people really, you know, pertaining to the ego, they wouldn't want to take your advice in regards to like what you're doing.
It's just it's more about, because like I said, you're as a barber, you're your own enterprise, right? So it's not about me as another barber standing next to you. It's about all the people that your clients that you cut, or the potential clients that you cut, right? So that's the, you know, how you deal with them, how you deal obviously with, you know, co-workers and whatever else too. But mainly it's like, you know, like I've heard barbers not here, but like, you know, I've heard barbers that are telling like electricians how to do their job, like, you know what I mean, type of thing, right? You're cutting someone who's an electrician who's telling you, no, that you got to do it like this, and then because the person's ego or cockiness, whatever you want to call it, is they're you know, kind of speaking over the guy who's actual professional in that, and telling them how to do their job essentially, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's, like I said, man, it's just, but I think that goes for anything, you know what I mean?
Actually, the thing that these guys were telling me, like a couple of guys, where they're just like, yo, like part one, this, you know, by the way, he's a revert. Like, you know, you didn't ask him anything about his reversion to Islam, right?
Right.
So I'm just wondering how that went. If you could retell the story as you've told it maybe like thousands of times.
Right. I came to Islam just before I turned 16 years old. So we're talking about 21 years ago. I took my Shahada. I grew up in a neighborhood that was, before there was a large Somali community, for example, down here in Regent Park or in other parts of the city. The only Somali community really only existed in Etobicoke, Rexdale and south side of Etobicoke, right? And,
all immigrants, of course, yeah.
Yeah, immigrants, but I'm, you know, specific, like my neighborhood was very heavily like Somali community. Regent Park never had any Somali families back then. They didn't exist, they weren't in Scarborough really, maybe a handful. But so I say all that just to say that culturally in my neighborhood growing up, Islam was already there. The prevalence of Islam was already there. For me to come outside as a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, to see, you know, families, women walking with a hijab, my friends' uncles or their fathers coming on the basketball court and grabbing them and going for Jummah. And okay, guys, I'll see you guys in an hour or whatever, you know.
Right.
Nobody eating pepperoni slices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was very, like, culturally, in terms of the neighborhood culture, it was never anything foreign to me. You know what I mean? As opposed to maybe somebody who grew up in a place where there was no big exposure to Islam or to Muslim people. You know, so for me, it was prominent from as soon as I was old enough to walk around and see, you know, colors and sounds and stuff. The relevance of Islam was there, you know. So flash forward to when I was about 15 years old. Again, naturally, a lot of the friends that I had growing up, a lot of them happened to be Muslim. We used to go play basketball, and a lot of times, you know, back then there would be spots that it was like drop-in centers, you can go play ball. And some places, a lot of times it was free. Other times you'd have to pay like $2-3,
Right.
you know, and back then we didn't even, you know, we didn't necessarily have the money all the time to pay, or we didn't want to pay and whatever.
Yeah, $2-3 was more as well back in the
Yeah, of course, yeah, and especially you're like 14 years old, right? 15 years old, like that's like,
Right.
that's your bus money, you know? There was this masjid that had a ball court that that these guys would go and play, and then I would go with them, you know, and we'd be playing in the gym, running games of ball, whatever, and then, you know, the older brother would come in and say, oh, it's Maghrib time or whatever, and I would go and just follow along, you know, and it was kind of like, yo, I snuck in, like, you know, and I'm here following along, and now it's Salat time, like, you know, and I'm here like, okay, now I go like this, and then stand up, and just, you know, follow the actions of praying, you know, to go play basketball,
Right.
you know, and so with that, I think it's a very powerful thing, you know, for, you know, we talk about it, like for somebody to go make sujood, you know, prostrate themselves for anything out here. If you know, people that maybe is outside the deen, you know, if you're like, yo, bow before your Mercedes Benz, you know what I mean? It's a very powerful action to for a human being to,
100%.
you know what I mean? Like, you know, your bigger brother, bro, go prostrate yourself before your bigger bro, because, you know what I mean? He bought you something from the store or something. Like, we wouldn't do it. Majority of people, I'm saying even non-Muslim, like people would feel a little bit of a way to do that for anything out here, you know? So the action of prostrating yourself and making sujood is a very powerful thing, you know? And I felt that, you know, at 15 years old. And again, like I said, because Islam was never something foreign to me. It was part of my neighborhood culture. You know what I mean? And growing up and understanding, you know, little fragments, but understanding the exposure of Islam, like, you know, seeing it, you know, in families and stuff like that. Yeah, so basically the way I tell people, bro, is I didn't have a choice. But all we have is choice, you know? But I didn't have a choice because once I understood certain things about Islam and I started asking questions and I got certain answers, and I would hear things that, you know, they say that it should never go against your common sense, essentially, you know, that essence of that feeling of what's right or wrong. And so then from then I like I said, I embraced Islam, and I remember it was like Ramadan within like 2 weeks after I came to Islam. And so I was like fasting pretty much right away. And my mom didn't know, you know, for the first maybe 10 months or so, she didn't know, you know. And then I remember when I did tell her, eventually, like, my mom was like relieved, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, she was happy. Because like I said, bro, we came up around, you know, places and spaces that a lot of young people got involved with a lot of, you know, negative things, you know what I mean? So she felt a little bit more relieved that, okay, my son, you know, isn't necessarily going to be out here, you know, causing some problems and involved with, you know, problematic things. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of a there was a shield more so, I think, in her view. We weren't raised religious.
Did you feel as though it was like something that you didn't want to tell your mom as well, or?
No, you know, it wasn't that I didn't want to tell her, bro, but it's like every family dynamic is different, you know? So for me, I'm the youngest of 3 boys.
Right, okay.
And I'm the only one from my father. So I have a different father than my brothers. And my brothers are 12 and 15 years older than me.
Right.
So there's a pretty big gap. So I'm like the youngest of 3, but I was kind of like an only child at the same time.
Right.
My eldest brother left Canada when I was 3 years old. I wasn't really raised with my father, you know. So, and then on top of that, my family, like I said, my mother was born and raised in Portugal, in Lisbon, but the family is Cape Verde and Creole. So like I said, it's like Afro-Portuguese, right? It's like history out of the former colonies of Africa, the former Portuguese colonies that are like kind of transplants, like, you know, so we come from a long line of like kind of like scattered people, bro. Like, there's like a displacement historically, you know what I mean? So I say, again, to say that there's no kind of like in my family dynamic, there wasn't really like a set tradition way of like, no, this is what we do. Everybody's like a black sheep. Everybody's kind of like their own, you know.
Oh, that's interesting.
I got family members that, you know, identify as black, and I got family members that try to hide their blackness within the same family.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
So this is like in terms of like even identity and, you know, whatever ethnic or racial identity is already up for toss up. Come from the same family, let alone what you believe in and what, you know. For me, it's a good thing because it alleviated going against like, for example, like a very, let's say a very Catholic, culturally like driven family that's like, no, this is our tradition, this is what we do. I didn't have that pressure. But yeah, for a little while I was kind of like sneaking around with it somewhat, you know. I was also on my own a lot, bro, growing up. I didn't even have to sneak too much because I was like an outside kid. Back in the day, you used to call latchkey kid. You know, the latchkey kid is a kid, you know, from a young age has a house key. You know what I mean? From a very young age, you know what I mean? Because he's out, he's coming home by himself and getting himself food and whatever. I came up like that. Right. You know, so it was a lot of, like I said, you're on your own a lot. You know what I mean? The way I tell people is that there's no difference, bro. You know what I'm saying? They say revert, they say whatever. Your great somebody took their shahada. So you didn't have to.
100%. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's still on you to own that. You know what I mean? To walk with it and to, you know, it's not a guarantee, right? It's still onto you. You were born into it. But at the end of the day, it's because somebody from however long we can go back, you know what I mean, said, you know what? No, I embrace Islam. This is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So because of that and, you know, all these generations after it, it is what it is. I just happen to be, you know, it might have been your great grandfather, but for me, it's me.
So actually, while you were cutting my hair, you know, you were talking about how you went to Umrah, right?
I did, yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, how was the whole journey there? How was the experience? Because I'll tell you a little bit, not about myself, but about my brother.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, when he came home, this guy, he was a changed man. You know?
Right.
He really was. Like I see him, you know, he really had something new about himself, you know, like he wasn't a totally different person.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's like I could see that he gave up a lot of things the moment he came back. It's like, you know, you have a really like a rejuvenated sense of iman.
For sure.
Through many different parts of his journey. So just specifically, how was the journey itself?
Oh, man.
You know,
you cried like a baby, brother. Why I cried like a baby, bro. When you walk and you see the Kaaba, like, you know. And for me, I grew up. We didn't see footage of, you know, Hajj season. You got the footage. Like, I didn't grow up like, you know, like maybe in other friends, you know, friends of mine, their households, they might have grown up watching, you know, news networks from back home that might cover the Hajj season.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But for me, I didn't have that. So my connection to like Mecca, you know, the Kaaba, was going into like restaurants and seeing like a framed picture. Or like on a prayer mat, you know what I mean, with the design, like, you know. So to actually go and see it for yourself, and obviously we know it's not just the Kaaba, it's the representation of what it is. It's the whole everything around it, right?
Yeah.
And so it was just beautiful, man. To be like, man, who would have thought that we would have been here? You know what I mean? I went with like 5 of my friends. It was, they say it's like you were invited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invited you, you know what I mean? And that's the energy. We were actually planning to go to Egypt at the time. We were going to do Egypt and Saudi. But that was the year when it was the whole Arab Spring and all this was going on.
Yeah.
We didn't know the temperature fully, what it was going to be. So we ended up going to Morocco. And then from Morocco, we went to Saudi.
And of course, you go into Saudi, how do you feel as though, because of course the culture is insanely different, right?
Sure.
So how do you feel it was different in your personal opinion?
You know what, bro? When I came back, I'm
going
to tell you a story. When I came back,
yeah, go ahead.
When I came back from Saudi, I was living up by Bleecker right here. Right? And I remember there was a guy in the building that was on drugs, right? There was a young guy that he was like, you know, very like evidently like on drugs, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, I'd seen him for years, you know, he was a harmless guy, but he was going through whatever little challenges or whatever. So I remember coming back and waiting at the elevator, and this guy's there, And like I said, he's not, you know, wasn't in his right mind fully, and he would just like stare at people and whatever. And I remember he was staring at me, and again, you know, like the way we kind of grew up, bro, and the thing is like, yo, what's this guy looking at? Yo, if this guy says anything, da-da-da, like, you know what I mean? You know, just, you give out that energy, like, you know? And, well, like, bro, I remember just thinking, I caught myself, and I was like, man, like, we put so much energy, like, this guy's like a mesquite guy, bro. Like, at the end of the day, he's a harmless kind of guy, you know what I mean? Yeah. He hasn't, in all the years I've seen him, he hasn't done anything where he freaks out or anything like that. But I'm giving this energy, even without even words, you know, I'm already feeding into that energy of like, yo, if this guy says something, I'm gonna smack him, you know? And it's like I caught myself, you know, where I was like, man, like, because in Saudi, like, you know, it's I don't want to say just Saudi specifically, but the energy, you know, that's there is like, we're used to the mentality over here, whereas I don't trust you, bro. This is the energy that we, you know, this is what we were around. I don't know you, I don't trust you. Yep. From across the street, I don't know who you are, where you come from. You know what I mean? You're not one of my people. Don't ask me for nothing. You know, that's what we're used to over here, a little bit more cold kind of thing, you know? Obviously, we break that down, communities break that down, family, relationships, friendships, all of that breaks that down, cultural relations, whatever. But it does exist a little bit, you know, whereas over there, it's like, whether they trust you as an individual or not, they trust the Almighty. You know what I mean? So it's not, they don't even need to trust you. You know, that's why they say Medina is a different kind of place, bro. They say you can drop your wallet right in Medina and come back hours later, bro, and it'll still be sitting there. You know, it's a very different, you know what I mean? You leave your phone out here on the curb for 5 minutes, bro. We know it's probably gone. You know, so you know, I remember being in some random little like flea market kind of mall in Jeddah, and the brother was selling like a bunch of cologne and whatever, and I remember I asked for something specific, and he said, "Okay, brother, I don't have it, but give me 10 minutes." You know, over here, so okay, give me a minute. You know what I mean? I'll be back. Give me a minute. Guy said 10 minutes, and literally took 10 minutes, and left his station completely unmanned.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And this is Hugo Boss, Lacoste, everything that's there, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I remember me and my friend looking at each other, bro, and we're not thieves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we came up over here. We grew up over here.
You had the mindset.
With a mindset. And we look at each other right away. We're like, bro, this could never happen back home. Like, guys are looking at that like it's a free opportunity. Whereas, like I said, over there, they put the trust, whether it's in you or it's in Allah, they put the trust, you know what I mean? They don't, if you're gonna be the one, bro, to go against that, you're gonna go, forget the law over there, forget the punishment of the law and anything like that. It's not even that. Saudi Arabia is a place that don't even need police, bro. You know what I mean? Because the people, it's a different, you don't want to be the one, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to be the one to go snatch a bottle of Lacoste cologne off the table and be like shamed for that and be like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just a different energy, a different mentality, you know. And coming back here, I always kind of try to hold on to that, you know, that, you know, it's we don't have to be so cold and ready to kind of pounce on one another. You know, it's like a quicksand, bro. It's like a minefield. You know what I mean? Like, if again coming up in certain places and spaces where the reaction is violence. Oh, I can make money fast money. I've been to a lot of funerals, bro. You know what I mean? I've been to a lot of funerals for a lot of young people. If I gotta sit and think about funerals that I've been to for like old people that died like in a normal kind of like old age kind of thing, I'd have to sit and think about how many times, because I can tell you numerous funerals I've been to for people, in their 30s, under their 30s, people in their 20s, you know what I mean, that died fast and died quick, and like, you know, so a lot of people got kind of sucked into that and got swallowed up by that, you know, and again, even the ones that made it through to some degree, like I said, it's like a minefield, bro, and if you're not careful, you know, not everyone dies or the mine goes off, but they can lose a limb. They get like maimed a little bit, you know, spiritually or physically, right? So it's like, not too many, man. I mean, again, if we're talking about me back in the day, like from my neighborhood growing up, a lot of people is not everybody went on to go do well. Let's say it like that.
Right. I'm just wondering, so your relationship with Ray, actually, I don't know if you mentioned it. Maybe my mind is, going. I don't know. But like, I'm wondering like how you first met him.
I tell people all the time, bro. I met him the same way I meet everybody.
Just
By
randomly.
cutting hair.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's how I met anyone that knows me for the past
Yeah.
20 years,
Okay.
bro. Most likely, I met them cutting hair.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, I read a book years ago that says when it comes down to business or anything, relationship, anything, it's all about trust. We over time, through your character, whatever, it's like you build up like trust points. And that's the type of energy that can be like someone that is close with you, that is has a lot of trust points over here, for example, can be like, oh, bro, I'll get you the job. Like my friend's there, like, you know what I mean? He's the owner of the company. You don't even need an interview,
Right.
for example. A lot of times the relationships, it's built off of, I met somebody because I knew somebody else. But because, not just that I knew the person, but because I had a good rapport with the person. Some layman terms, bro, they say you catch more with honey than vinegar, And it's not about opportunistically trying to catch people at all, but it's like just the idea of being sweet, bro, being nice, being warm, being, trustworthy, showing love. Your network is going to expand more than being cold, being closed off, being negative, being salty, being, like this kind of thing. People don't want to work with you. People don't want to build with you. They don't want to bring you to meet somebody else.
Right.
I met Ray through a guy that we had a good relationship, but it all came back. The vehicle was the barbering.
Right.
Like that's what it was. These guys were in the city looking for a haircut, essentially.
Right,
You know what I mean?
Right.
And these guys are saying my name and whatever, and then you connect like that. And then it could have just been a one-time thing, one and done. But again, the connection was there, and I wasn't there to to show that off. You know what I mean? I never took a picture with Ray.
Yeah, no, 100%. In all honesty, like, this is like something that's, he didn't just randomly say this. Like, I'm asking out of my own, I just want to know, right?
Right. Yeah, no, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's I never charged him for the haircut. I'll tell you that, you know what I mean? Like, I never, because I wasn't there for that. There was times where I went and cut, I was like, bro, I could have used the money, 100%. But to me, it was like, nah, bro, what you guys contributed, I'm like, you already paid me, brother. You know what I mean? Like, and honestly, that's how I feel. That's how I felt, where I'm like, no. You don't have to charge, don't pay nothing. You know what I mean? So again, I value the relationship over as I say, bro, I'd rather be rich with opportunity than rich with money.
Right.
Because the money, man makes the money. We can always earn the money, but the opportunity is the real richness, in my opinion, you know?